Welcome back to another edition of the Comics Pals Book Club. I'm your host this month, Pete Imbesi, joined, as always, by my pal in podcasting, Mr. Marco Cunalata.
Hello.
What's going on, man? So 2 book clubs in a row, 2 X-Men books, both hosted by me. What a treat for the listeners.
It's exciting. It's exciting because I feel like we're both big fans of the X-Men generally, outside of what's been going on with Hickman and like everything else, but like generally we're on that level. So yeah, exciting.
Yeah, all the X-Men experts on the show are right here, you know? All of them, everyone.
All of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's you and I definitely have a soft spot for this era of X-Men. Speaking of which era of X-Men we're talking about, I should probably introduce the book. Can you tell I wasn't supposed to host this one? This one is on New Mutants Demon Bear, which we're only going to be... We read the entire trilogy saga, but we've decided to focus on the original by Chris Claremont, pencilers Bob MacLeod and Sal Buscema, inkers Mike Gustafich with Tom Mandrake and Kim DeMulder, with colors by Glennis Ween, and it is excerpts from New Mutants number 1, number 3, and number 17. So this is the original Demon Bear Saga, which focuses all around Danielle Moonstar, who has gone by a bunch of different names, but at the time was going by Psyche. And the setup, more or less, is that she is haunted by these visions of a demon bear that was supposed to be responsible for her parents' murder. And years later, after she's come and joined the X-Men, specifically the New Mutants, she is revisited by this ghastly figure, and it's returned to wreak havoc again. So we chose this book because it seemed to be the closest analog to the I can't believe is actually coming out film New Mutants, which also
nobody could believe it was coming out film.
Yeah, God bless them. Which also has a horror.
Sorry, I did just want to also note that Bill Sienkiewicz is one of the artists for this series as well.
I said his name, didn't I?
I think you just hit Bob McLeod.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, he did the covers and stuff.
No, he did the interiors for the actual remainder of the series. So he was in for 17, 18, all that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the credits on the like the TPB, and it only says 1, 3, and 17, and it only lists Bob and Sal.
That's so weird. On the actual in the individual issues, it has him as the artist. Huh. Like in the covers on the pages, Chris Claremont, Bill Sienkiewicz, Glennis Ween, Tom Orzechowski.
Interesting. Well, they all contributed to some degree, so shout outs.
Yeah.
But either way, yeah. So this whole bit is definitely seems to be at least in part the inspiration for the New Mutants film that we're getting now, which does have like a horror bend. It takes place in a hospital. A lot of those elements originate from this run. So we decided what better way to celebrate the film trudging its way across the finish line than to revisit the source material here. So let's dive into it with our spoiler-free thoughts, Marco. First of all, had you ever read this saga before? Was this your first blush at it? What was the deal?
Yeah, so this was the first time I'd ever read it. I've heard of it. I was reading the older X-Men stuff, and I do remember there being mentioned in sort of like the back matter and stuff of what I had been reading, check out the New Mutants, and then especially when this arc had been coming out. So I was definitely aware of it, but this was the first time that I had read it, and I love this. Like, this is to me the comics that I enjoy from the 80s. This is the superhero stuff that I really enjoy. I like that Claremont is very verbose. I like the experimental art style, the weird sort of graphic design introductions. It's really cool.
Like the weird lighting and stuff.
Yeah, this is my kind of shit. I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I mean it's horror too, right? So
yeah.
Yeah. So I had never read this one either. I am similarly a big fan of this era of X-Men and Marvel in general, but specifically X-Men and Spider-Man. And this is definitely where I'm the most at home with the X-Men, but even I have not really read much of the New Mutants from this era. I've read some of it here and there in a few trades, but I never read this one before, and I don't think I'd even heard of it before
Yeah.
we talked about it. Yeah. So I this was a real treat. I really enjoyed this because, like you said, this is very much like my X-Men, is this time period, and finding, new corners of it that I haven't explored yet. It kind of makes me want to go read the whole run.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So while I was reading the X-Men stuff, this had split off, and I picked up a couple of the first few issues just in terms of like actually getting like the first trade,
Yeah.
and there was enough there to keep me going, but I just didn't continue because I'm like, all right, I'm on this specific mission to get as far as I can within the X-Men, so I didn't continue. But this, yeah, similarly, definitely wants me to come back and revisit this era, especially because like this alone was awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't even read the stuff that I have read in, over 10 years at this point for some of it. So kind of has me thinking like, maybe that would be fun.
Yo, it's time to go back, son.
Yeah. Maybe there's a show there.
Ooh.
But so yeah, so let's so we both liked it. We're both fans of this era of X-Men, so pretty easy sell for us. So let's jump into the spoiler full section. So what about this? Like you said, you'd heard about this before, right? So what was your expectation going into it, and like how did that match with what we actually got here? Because I went in totally blind.
Yeah, I'd always heard good things about it. And so because of that, I was confident that whatever we were going to pick up was going to be something I would enjoy. And I do know that the Longbox Boys actually they also did a review of this, but I had been sort of holding off until I had gotten a chance to read it because I knew at some point
was over.
Yeah. Yeah, so I can go back into it. But yeah, I mean, I'd heard a lot about it just in terms of buzz. It was a good book. It was artsy, that kind of stuff. And so it was good that it matched my expectations and in some parts exceeded.
All right. So yeah, I mean, it's tough on, I guess, where to begin rather than just, I guess jumping into where the kind of the action gets going, right? We get this concept of this demon bear established between a conversation between oh my gosh, what's her name? The Wolfsbane. Yeah, Wolfsbane and Moonstar, and we kind of get the backstory of like how this all played out and what this bear means to her and what it signifies and everything, and like why it would be showing up out of nowhere now with the death of her grandfather. And it immediately goes from that into in New Mutants 3, we get the first real taste of horror, where it's that very classic, like, it's a dark and stormy night and there's flashes of lightning and the monster appears in the window, and like it's great imagery, and it's not your typical fare for an X-Men book, and I think that was where I really started getting into it. It was kind of like, okay, cool. This gives me an idea of what to expect, and it's certainly not what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I knew that there was a horror bend to the book, but I guess I wasn't expecting as this distinct like horror imagery.
Yeah. It definitely hooks you in at that start, and I do like that. This was typical Claremont. He would do something. Using this as an example, he would do something issue 3 and then like sprinkle it here in issue like whatever 7, then actually bring it to fruition. So I do enjoy those elements, and I would think that reading it week to week or having reading the entire series would have been pretty cool to sort of experience. But having it condensed here also kind of just in this shorter time frame also kind of accelerates the tension, because that ultimately it's something that's going to be coming, but because you have these little sort of interludes and these excerpts from the other issues, that it definitely allows for that tension to build as sort of a kind of like an introduction and prelude, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, the first three issues that were, that have those excerpts, right, from the original New Mutant stuff, they're, like you said, they're pretty far apart. It's like
Mhm.
1, 3, and then 17.
Yeah.
So it's like it was a slow burn, and then it isn't until the Death Hunt storyline, which is where Bill Sienkiewicz comes in. Thank you again for calling me out on that. Um, that is where we really get into the meat of it. But by that point, like, you've already gotten some strong, like, you have all the pieces, right? All the pieces of the
Mhm.
puzzle are on the board, and you can kind of just get into like the action. And I feel like, um, you know, Bob's style is a lot more classic,
Yes.
and Sienkiewicz really does some interesting stuff. Like even just that first page, right, where it's like the
Yes.
bear's face and like it's the checkerboard of like a blanket kind of, there's some really really striking moments in the book, and some really strong work, I think.
Yeah. This is similarly to, I think, when Swamp Thing was coming out, has this very like ink heavy, sort of scratchy, but more like
Yeah.
a like hatching style. So
Hmm.
like you can kind of like ink via making these lines, these sharp distinct lines, and sort of like an etching look. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Which was very of the time too, like
yeah,
there was a lot of
hmm,
those British comics that have that really inky style and that scratchy kind of style, and it's a lot different than what Bob did, but it works,
yeah.
particularly for this kind of story, I think. And the color work similarly is really really good.
Yeah, that definitely stands out. As much as the actual art and like line work does, the it helps to accentuate and really like pop things or make things pop rather.
Yeah, like something as simple as like the moment where you have the conversation with it's when Magic has Lockheed around her shoulders
Hmm.
and she's like being illuminated by the light.
Oh, sure, sure,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, like there just lots of like cool choices like that. And it's unfortunate because I think there are times where this style really really works, and then you can even look on like that same page though, like later on, the bottom left panel, like, oh my god, how messy some of it looks,
yeah,
like it,
yeah.
and that was the style at the time, so
Hmm.
like I can forgive it to some degree, but like it definitely is peaks and valleys, I think, of like how well the really heavy inky style is to the benefit or not,
Right, yeah,
it's
yep.
so funny to think like how different comics are made now though, like there aren't, and like no one's an inker, that's not like a thing anymore.
Yeah, to like, well, with like digital comics to like I guess a certain degree they're not. Yeah,
It's not in the same way, right? Like,
right,
I
right.
mean, like the inks are such a big part of what this looks like,
Hmm.
you
Yep,
know,
yeah, yeah.
and it has an analog feel to it. It has a tactical feel to it that I don't think you get with stuff that's digitally colored, and not for better or worse, right? It's just different. It's a different style.
Yeah, and then just with respect to the colors, the palette was much more limited, so you have to be able to use these more contrasts
Yeah.
or these more contrasting colors to allow for you to do, like, for example, in those opening pages of issue 17 where you're seeing the explosion, you're seeing like primary white, yellow, orange, and red. There's a gradient, but it's very gradual, where nowadays you can kind of just like gradate that color to a certain degree. You had to
Yeah.
use like these four primary colors to really get that effect. The purple in the following page to accentuate, the sort of messiness in the background. So yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good work here, and uh, not as like a value judgment of like what's better or worse. It's just like I appreciate this style,
Right.
and it's a style that you don't see anymore.
Hmm.
So I think the art is really what stands out here,
Right.
because like you
And
said, like I'm a fan of Claremont, like, and I like his verbose, like, you know like very caption heavy, like style. Like it's a style that I am accustomed to and a fan of, but I think it's none of the dialogue or even like the real meat of the story that makes this super interesting. I think it really is like the art and the unique paneling and the color work and the inking that like makes it really like a cut above just, just a random arc on a monthly.
Right, because I feel like if you had given this to Bob McLeod, it would just have a totally different energy. It wouldn't be as horror. It wouldn't have these, I think, harsh color contrasts. It'd be much more subdued, I think.
Yeah.
Um, what did just because I have like an affection for them, but I always like seeing the thought bubbles.
Oh yeah.
Like versus just having, because like nowadays it's just like caption, right? You can't have somebody like internally monologuing necessarily.
Yeah, well, because it's weird, right? Because like when you think about the way the comics were made when this was contemporary, right? Like you had the dialogue, you had internal monologue, and then you had the captions, which were like for the author to communicate to the reader. Like
Yeah, like a narration.
yeah, it's like very much like like old TV shows or something, right? Like where it's
Right.
like, oh, like let's see what the new mutants are up to this week, gang. Like it has that kind of vibe to it.
Right.
And we don't get that anymore, right? Because like now, internal dialogue is usually relegated to captions,
Yeah.
and so you don't really have thought bubbles. Like that is such a time and place thing, and like it's funny too because a lot of times it's very like expository. It's very like, oh, this might be your first comic, so I need to explain to you like what mutants are in the thought bubble.
Yeah, it does that a lot. Yeah.
And stuff like that. If we were talking about a modern book, we would complain about that. We'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like, like I remember
X-Men are.
yeah, we joked about that in X-Men #1, I think. Where like some of the dialogue was very like old school expository. It was like, this island of mutants, the mutant paradise, and it's like, yeah, we know, we all live here, like.
The island of mutants, the mutants who are people but not people, but
they
they have
have
a genetic
powers.
Whatever. Yeah.
We could never tell anyone that we're mutants, an evolved species of humanity. Like, and so it's a style. It's a style. It's a time and place thing. It's a way that comics used to be done. And like, it's funny because I think like there are definitely things about it that are hokey. That like feel like I don't even hokey's I guess the right word. It feels like silly almost, and like so old fashioned. But there's a charm to it,
Absolutely.
And I think I really enjoy going back to some of these old books, like they don't all hold up as well as something like this does, but when they do, they're like a really fun time capsule, know, and it reminds you. Or not necessarily reminds you, but I think it contextualizes how much history there is to comics.
Yeah.
Because it isn't just like, like I know that the X-Men have been around for like, 50 years or whatever, or 60 years or, whatever. I actually don't know off the top of my head how old they are.
Like the 60s. I think it's like, I think it's been like 60 years.
Isn't it like 60? It's like late 60s though, right?
I don't remember.
Either way. You get what I'm saying, right? It's
Yeah.
I can on paper talk about the fact, right, that it's like, oh, they came out in the Silver Age and it was around this and this is the context of it. But like actually reading different periods of work and stuff like that really I think helps give you a sense of the history there because of like how much things have changed, and like how used you are. That's not a good way to say that. How much you get used to the way that modern comics deliver a story versus the way that they used to, it's I mean, it's great because this is, I think, just great work, but it's also, especially for like what we like to do, like when you're talking about the craft and everything, like it's a meaningful trip down memory lane, I think.
So so I'm not as familiar with all of these characters. The only one that I really know is Illyana because she was part of the X-Men here and there as Colossus's younger sister.
Yeah.
So like, do you have connections to any of these other characters outside of Danny or let's say like Ileana?
I wouldn't say that I have connections to them, but I am aware of them. You know,
Okay. Okay.
like Bobby Roberto DaCosta is like he's been a fixture of the X-Men like off and on, you know, a lot. Um, what's her name? Wolfsbane is like another character that like I'm like casually familiar with, you know.
Mm.
So like a few of them, but I'm not by and large. Like Mara, I think was her name. Amara. Amara was
Amara, yeah,
yeah. I was not familiar with her.
the Magma Girl.
Yeah, like not at all. Like and like same with like Sam, like Cannonball. Like I know Cannonball by name.
Yeah, same. Yeah, but if you told me Sam Guthrie, I'd be like, couldn't
I
point
would
him.
yeah, right. Like that doesn't mean anything to me.
Right,
Even though he's like a character I'm like kind of familiar with, you know?
right.
So like yeah, like there's like a mostly fresh cast for me. They're
Okay.
characters I really know in like name only aside from Roberto. Like I have like a bit more of an understanding of him. Like if you asked me like I could give you a rough outline of his like journey as an X character, you know?
Mm.
Just, he's been a major player in like a few other events and stuff.
Being that we're both unfamiliar, how did you like each of the characters? How did they sort of play together? Did was that something that really worked for you?
Um Yeah, but not in a super meaningful way. If I'm being honest,
Mm.
like I think it's like serviceable in terms of they all have different voices and different personalities to some degree, and like I get their relationships to each other and how they're bouncing off of each other. Like that all comes across even as someone who's not super familiar with them. But I don't think that there's like a lot of super meaningful character work here that isn't focused on I keep forgetting her name. Danny, yeah,
Yeah.
Danny. Cuz it's like about her. It's about her and this thing that's from her past and how it relates to her family. And the rest of the characters are just kind of supporting players, you know?
Well, yeah, and I say that because she's definitely the main driver, but she's only in like an issue.
Right, cuz she's like under the knife the whole time.
Right, right.
So like I think it almost reminds me of like The Hangover, you know, where it's like the main character like gets
Oh
taken
yeah.
out right in the beginning. And
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, okay, I guess they're not that important. Yeah, because I think like for the rest of the characters, like they don't have much skin in the game aside from the fact that it's like, well, Danny's our friend and we're trying to save her and our lives are at risk. So
Yeah.
like it feels to me almost like a classic horror setup where it's like, yeah, they're these like archetype teenagers and like I get who they are and some of them get along and some of them don't and okay. Yeah, like it works. It works because I think the writing is good enough in terms of
Mhm.
like making their, you know, their motivations and their characterization come across enough to the point where you can get what you need to get out of it and, you know, enjoy the thrust of the narrative.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm similar to you in that it definitely worked. I think it worked a little more for me. Um the way that Chris Claremont sort of writes them, I I like the sort of style and the way that he kind of explains. For example, I think it was Roberto who liked Amara or something, or no,
No, that was
Sam
Sam.
rather.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that
Cannonball.
and like I'm like, oh, that's cute. Like he sets up the to your point, like the archetypes, but I think he uses them pretty effectively without needing to sort of get too deep into them.
Yeah,
Because yeah,
because like when you think about that scene, right? Like, because this is the funny thing when you talk about some of these comic writers, right? Like from this era,
mm,
some of the writing is very like hackneyed. You know, like it's very like stilted and like you wouldn't give these guys an award for dialogue, right? But when you think about it from like a pure like storytelling angle,
hmm,
that whole like the way that he establishes those minor beats tell you a lot about the characters,
yeah,
right? So like, okay, Sam has feelings for Amara, and he's not able to really express them, So that gives you information about him as a character who's insecure or not confident or whatever, right? And with oh crap, I had another one. Oh, right. Okay. So then when Magic does the thing to save Amara after she gets infected and he freaks out, right?
Yeah.
That also speaks to a broader thing of the fact that, like, oh, hey, like, they really don't trust Magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not just Wolfsbane who, because she's very vocal about the fact that she doesn't trust her and like her, you know?
Right.
And both vocally and through her internal monologue. But, like, having the leader of the group do that to someone he's supposed to be leading, right? Like, that speaks volumes about, like, her relationship to the rest of the group, you know, through a moment rather than being like, Magic always felt like an outsider, you know, like, so, you know, there's some really, really good work there, I think, and not in terms of, like, character work, right, where it's like, these characters are so fleshed out and I've seen them go on this journey. It's more like, even in this limited scope, we get enough of them to understand who they are and what they care about.
Right.
And that allows you to identify with them when bad things happen.
Yep.
You know, or when they're put in a situation where their lives are at risk, you know, or whatever, right? Because even through, like, little things, right? Like, they talk about, like, they hint at the fact that, like, Roberto's, his girlfriend, part of his origin story is that his girlfriend dies saving him.
Oh.
And he says, like, I can't lose you like I lost her, you know? And same thing with Dani, right? Where, like, she doesn't have a family. The New Mutants are her surrogate family, you know?
Right.
So, like, even that, right? Like, it's through these little things where it's like, oh, like, these characters have found a surrogate family with one another. So, like, obviously, like, aside from the fact that, like, a friend is in danger in the hospital or whatever, right? Like, it's also this familial thing. Like, and there's a lot of work that goes in there that I think is the reason it works as well as it does, even though we don't know the characters. You know, you and I walked into this not knowing who they are. And you can pick it up as if it's your first issue and get a sense for it and start following it. All right? And like, that's how comics used to be written. And that's hard, right? Like, how do you tell a good, meaningful story that moves things forward every issue, but also serves as the beginning for everyone at any given time? You know,
right.
That's why you have some of that stuff.
Yeah, it's a slow drip feed over time, but it's enough contextualized in, like, a single issue that to like try to hook you in and keep you there for the long haul.
Yeah, it's like a true serial, right? Like, it's like more, it's more like picking up a sitcom or something like that, you know, or it's like, oh, I can watch in the middle and, like, who are these characters? How do they relate to each other? Okay, I get it. They're friends. They're not. Got it. You know?
Yeah. Yo, how badass is Dani, son? Like, we only get her for that one issue, but the entire time she is
stone cold boss.
Yeah, dude.
Like, when she goes out into the woods with just a bow and arrow, I was like, that's badass.
It's like, all right, respect, one, and then two, you're like, again, like, in this limited scope, you're just determined, and that speaks volumes to this person. And obviously she ends up getting, like, bodied by the demon bear in this super violent way.
Yeah, where she's just, like, absolutely eviscerated.
Yeah. I did enjoy the way it sort of picks up right after, where it's super hectic, and I think Sienkiewicz uses like the severity of her wounds to really be able to translate a lot. So, or rather, to be able to translate a lot of, like, the motion and what's going on in the scene work. So even the opening page, it literally
the red.
Yes,
and
exactly.
The contrast with the blues from their coat and that, like, yeah, it's very bold. It's striking, you know.
Right. And then the panels are just like they're stilted. They're sort of oddly shaped. It's just there's that one scene where he just tosses her bloodied coat, like, against the wall, against the white. It's
like, the reds are so bold, and, like, the fact that it's just, like, these reds and, like, these, like, soft pinks, and then, like, there's, like, the nurse, or maybe she's the doctor, I think, in the foreground, where and she's in full color.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Like, there's just good work there, you know, and, like, And even just in little things where, like, like in that same scene, right? Like the fact that they give Sam a purple hat. Like it's like, oh, cool. Like you have like these visual touchstones to like immediately identify like which character is which.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, it's really good. It communicates the story visually very well. Like I think Sean always likes to bring this up. I think this is one of those comics where you could take all the all of the dialogue and stuff out, and you'd still be able to get a sense of what's happening.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's
yeah,
so
absolutely.
expressive, and like you get how you're supposed to feel because of the color theory, and like how strong some of these just some of the moments are, right? Like I think it's a few pages, 2-3 pages after the one we were just talking about. Where there's the shot of Roberto and he's looking in the window and he's like, why did it have to snow tonight? We're stuck in this hospital. We should be home following that monster's trail. And he's yellow and his fists are clenched and his face is all scrunched up, and you can feel like the anxiety and how much he feels powerless, and like he's got the red behind him, and it's like it's that very like intense kind of like framing, of these very personal, emotional moments.
Yeah, I think he really translates body movement and facial expression really well, and that just elevates basically anything that is being written just gets elevated and made that much more intense because of that.
Yeah, like because again, like right, like look like 2 pages later, or no, 2 pages later, it's the first panel, and this is like after Roberto calms down. I'm just calling him Bobby. They call him Bobby. After he calms down, right? Like he's like kind of slunched. He's got his hands in his pockets. Like, his body language is very like he's kind of you can see visually that he's come down from where we saw him, right? And that's the kind of stuff that you point out when it's good, and you dig people when it's real bad, but there's a lot of middling stuff that we kind of just accept, and there's not like, it's not like that. There's a lot of just really like close up shots of people's faces and like what you can really get a sense for what they're thinking and feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in horror, that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. The pacing of that, to your point, being able to take it from like an accelerated moment and then like decompress it, like you're basically playing with that sort of tension and release. How did you feel about the having Danny be in the hospital for the entire time? Like I didn't realize that that's what the story was about. I thought there was going to be more action, more sort of that was the one thing that I mentioned earlier, something like exceeded my expectation, because I actually very much enjoyed them having to rally around her while she's, fighting for her life. They're fighting for her life and their life. Like I like the contrasts.
Yeah, I think it's important because it's a shame that she gets sidelined because it's really her fight.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, that's kind of why the story works, is because it gives it real stakes. And especially at this point in time, like X-Men die, like it wouldn't be crazy for her to die in this story.
Yeah.
So it gives it a real sense of that there are stakes here and that their actions matter, right? Like this character's life is in the balance, and as we established, right, with the whole familial thing, like that's something that they all have stake in, right? Like this is their friend, this is their teammate, this is their, family, whatever. Like that's why it has so much weight, because it's not just if we fail, we die. It's also if we fail, we fail Danny.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
It gives it stakes.
Yeah. The bear.
The bear.
Well, listeners, you can check out the image of the bear that we'll put up when we first make this announcement, so you can go back and check that out. But this bear is menacing, and I love how Sienkiewicz plays with the size
The proportion,
because
yeah.
right, because it makes him not only um towering. No, there's another word. Starts with a B, I think. Like,
Like,
but foreboding,
like imposing, foreboding.
imposing, maybe.
Yeah.
But at any rate, it fills up the space in a really effective way that makes it so that you can feel like you don't have room. You literally don't have the room to breathe, and neither does the panel, neither does the character about to face this monstrosity.
Yeah, like he's like regularly breaking out of the panel.
Yep.
And there's a few times where it's so cool the way that Sienkiewicz makes use of like black space.
Yeah.
Like what is it? I think it's the first time. I think it's the first time when they actually start fighting him.
Like in the hospital.
Yeah, and there's that scene where Magic and Bobby are talking, and Magic's like, "I think we're about to find out," and it's just the bear, and all you can see is his face, and like, I guess blood dripping, or maybe it's his open mouth. Either way, it's that scratchy style, and then his claws, and the rest is just black space.
Are you talking about this one? Hold on.
He's like, yes, yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he's got like. The negative space makes him look so much bigger, and that it's like, oh, he's this shadowy figure that like lives in in the corners of all the dark corners that you're afraid to go in.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's good monster design.
Yeah. Yep.
It reminds me of like something like Alien. Where it's like the less you see him, the cooler he is almost.
Yeah, exactly. And like the parts that you do are just incredible.
Yeah, you're like, oh no, like that's
I did it. Like, I wanted to see it, but now I don't want to see it.
Or like, there's oh man, yeah, like this is a great one. The page where he slashes Magic, and it's it's the second time where she realizes she has the armor on her back or whatever, and it's just red panel, paw swipe, and her just like like
yeah.
Oh my god, there's just so many cool moments like that where he really takes great advantage of like the look of this creature.
Mm-hmm. The eyes in particular, and I think when they get to issue, what is this, 20? No, is it? But when they
I'm trying to pull it up. Hold on.
Yeah, it's right after issue 20, right after Siege, where they go to the Badlands. I like that transition. Yeah, the Badlands issue 20 because it's such a contrast from where they do come from. So even though they stay within the realm of the hospital, because they get transported in, he becomes the darkness and takes it away from the environment, so that we have what was once totally black space where he was hiding in. He just becomes this foreboding presence, and then he uses white space in that last page of Siege, and then in the following issue, it's like a double page, and you see he's just this huge piece of, or he's this huge beast within this like more, I guess like prettier landscape. And then he wrecks the doctor and the policeman.
Yes, yeah, and I even that, right? Like what a fucking moment! Like it's so it's just like immediately unsettling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is one of the coolest moments probably. Just like there's so much going on in that. And like the gradient of like the character, right, from that white to the that's really probably one of the most standout moments. But even then, like jumping into the like the Badlands issue, like I love the opening shot where it like recontextualizes that shot we're talking about, but like
Mhm.
further out, and like how goofy the bear looks in that. And
Yeah,
like
yeah,
he's like he doesn't look scary at all anymore. He's just like he looks almost like a meme.
yeah, yeah.
He's like ah. But
And this was the only criticism I had about the art, but that chart at the very top corner, I didn't get it.
yeah, and they explain it, but it doesn't really make sense.
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it's like it keeps getting bigger, and I'm like, why is it getting bigger? Like that hasn't been established. So
Yeah, they kind of just mentioned that. Oh, he starts to take over. Like it says, like the black areas represent areas of land consumed by the Demon's Bear shadow. But I don't think we needed that.
no, I don't think so. I don't think it adds anything.
Right.
It's like they're trying to put a ticking clock on it, but like the situation already has stakes.
Oh, okay.
It's like, oh, like if you don't do this, he's gonna take over the world, and it's like he doesn't need to take over the world. Like the personal stakes are the thing we care about.
Exactly. Yes.
It doesn't really add anything.
Yeah. That was my one criticism about, I think, the art and the story, where I was like, all right, this wasn't necessary. Like you guys came back to it 2 or 3 times, and for what?
I think the Badlands thing overall is probably my favorite issue though.
Yes, I did very much like that one. Actually,
Just
no, I like the one before that, the Siege.
Siege is I think Siege is like the coolest in terms of just like raw horror.
Mhm.
Like that has a lot of really good moments, but I feel like the team really got into a stride on the third one.
Yeah, yeah, okay,
Just
yeah.
because look at that second page, like after the opening one that we were just talking about, like
Mhm.
the bear like doing the claws thing and then turning the two into their like like his minions or whatever. Like that is one of the coolest moments in the book.
They look great.
And just look at his face and the teeth, the way the teeth are drawn. Like
Oh, so good.
it's it's just, and
It's
I feel like this issue really fires on all cylinders where that stuff's concerned, because it's like this is where the real fight begins.
Yeah.
But then like it keeps cutting back to like the hospital, and like you're still getting all those cool horror moments, but it's like interspersed with this really like frenetic, like messy action. And like I dig that.
And the bear does end up getting like more crazed, and you can sort of see it expressed in the eyes, the teeth. To your earlier point, like he gets these just like bug-eyed monstrous just circles, and then the dot inside, or other times it'd be a yellow, red, yellow, contrasting. It's great.
Yeah, like you get the sense that like he's being more and more twisted by this realm where he has power. Like he's getting more and more frantic and more like menacing, almost like to the point where like the scene where he gets like cut in half, where it's like his eyes are just like circling out, and like it's so wild looking.
Yeah, this fight scene was great. Excellent scene.
This is like what good like superhero combat can look like.
Yes, exactly.
Like
Yep.
it's real like cerebral and cool.
Mm-hmm.
And like they make good use of everybody's powers. This is also a good group of characters. Like they have very visually interesting powers, and like they're pretty distinct.
Yeah, it's not the typical like, oh, I'm gonna throw a punch at you and you're gonna throw a punch at me.
Yeah.
It's like, no, bro, watch out, cannonball, you go this way. Like, oh my god, magic, like check out this dude. Like,
Yeah.
it breaks out. It's really effective.
And it's like Magic has a fucking cool sword, and Cannonball
so
like
cool.
flings himself on fire, and
Yeah.
Bobby's powers are all he's got this cool antimatter look to him. Like they have pretty distinct styles, and like it works. Like this is why people like the X-Men.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
It's just cool. So I did want to bring something up though, like from a story perspective. What did you make of the whole thing where the doctor or the nurse and the cop rather like get turned into the like demons, and then they get turned back, and then they're Native Americans for some reason?
Yeah.
Like what the hell was that about?
I was so confused. Some weird Chris Claremont shit. He's into Native Americans. I don't know.
It's like vaguely racist. Like it's like very like.
I feel like it's not the first time he's done something similar either. I feel like I specifically remember him doing something similar with like another culture race in the X-Men proper.
Is he responsible for Psylocke? Is
I
that the
don't
thing?
know.
Because that could be it. That might be him.
I don't remember, but I feel like I've seen this before. So when I saw it, I was like, "Nah, Chris Claremont, that tracks." I don't know.
It's so weird. It's so
but
weird.
but yeah, agreed. It was just like oh, the spell has been broken, but we can't bring them back. They're gonna stay like this forever. And I was like, are you implying that this is a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. It would be really weird to all of a sudden be in someone else's body.
Yeah.
But it feels like you're very focused on the race element of it.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know about that. Because it's like Wolfsbane, and she has the line where she's like, Officer Corsi and Nurse Friedlander, they're human. They aren't demons anymore. But they've not returned to their true selves. They're still Red Indians. And I was like, oh, God, Red Indians? That's what we're going with, Chris Claremont? Woof.
I was like, oh, the 80s.
Woof. Yeah.
Yeah. That was definitely funny.
Yeah, it's that very, like, 80s brand of, like, I don't feel like you're trying to drop a hard R racism, but it kind of feels like it. Like, it's...
It was like it literally just needed somebody to be, or if they had gone back to the scenes, yelled out my privilege.
It's just so funny to me though, because like you said, like he's like really into Native Americans.
Yeah,
and it's like I forgot about it until this, and I was like kind of looking, because like I said, we read the whole trilogy, so I was like looking up Warpath and stuff because I like forgot about like what his deal was.
Oh yeah,
and like that's another one, and like I think he invented like 3 or 4 Native American X-Men, like all like in this period.
Yeah, I forget. A Giant Size X-Men. I forget who the character was. Was it Warpath?
Yeah.
Oh, Giant Size.
The last one that we read with him, where he teams up with Ghost Rider and.
No. But then in Giant Size X-Men #1 also like that.
Oh no, that's his brother.
Oh, that's who it was.
Yeah,
okay.
It's Thunderbird, I think is
yes,
his name.
Yes.
And then Thunderbird dies, and then Warpath becomes the second Thunderbird, and then becomes Warpath. That was the brother he was going to go visit in the Demon Bear story that we read.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yes, John Proudstar, Thunderbird. That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, John, and then he dies, and then Warpath is James.
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, also, I really, really appreciated the cameo by 80s Punk Storm.
I was gonna bring that up. I love that.
That's one of like top 3 favorite character designs ever. Are you fucking kidding me? She looks so cool.
It's her best look. That is peak Storm.
Yeah, and she was.
Yo, give me that back, man. Yo, Hickman, what's up?
Give
me that.
The Morlocks at the time was the thing.
Yes,
right?
and it's cool that I played into that at the end because I was like, wait a minute, that guy's a Morlock, because I specifically remember that dude. And she's like, thank you, healer. I was like, oh shit, she's still. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and he says, "Thou art leader of the Morlocks, Wind Rider." As of
yes. Oh, Wind Rider. Yes.
Yeah. My fealty and service are thine by right. Call me when thou hast need. I shall ever answer. Claremont clearly just wanted to write like old medieval like stuff.
He
and was just like,
did.
I guess I have to write the X-Men.
Yeah, he totally did. Man, that's
I
great.
feel like he has such an Arthurian style about him.
Oh, but that's at the end, right? And I did. What did you feel about Illyana being the ultimate thing to defeat the bear? Because I know the entirety of the Demon Bear thing was that it was Danny who was, who had like the power or who knew how to defeat him and all this kind of stuff. And it's weird that she knew, or that it was weird that she didn't know she needed the sword or magic to do so, that she thought she could just kind of do it. And that was one piece of the story that kind of like didn't track all the way for me.
I don't think it really makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where like upon examination it kind of falls apart, because it's like Danny knew and I needed to go and make contact with her to get this information, and okay, magic now, just cut him in half, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't totally grasp that either. And I'm like trying to look at it now to see if I can like get some context there, but it doesn't. I don't think it really made sense.
Yeah, Danny kind of got the short end on that because I definitely wanted her to get that sort of retribution, but I think in the fallout of that, where it turns out, her parents kind of come back, I think that would have been a really special moment. But again, obviously she was in surgery, so
Yeah. Yeah, so okay, here it is. Wolfsbane says Danny was the knowledge. Danny was the knowledge. Ours the power. The mutants acting as a team. It must be cut. It must be cut to its heart and soul. Yeah. So
maybe
I don't know what that means, right? Like
teamwork prevails, I guess.
Yeah, I have the answer. Teamwork.
I guess.
Yeah. Which is like fine, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I understand, like if that's the key, it's that like she just needed the support of her friends to do it, whatever. Like, okay,
but it's definitely more anticlimactic than, or not more anticlimactic. It's definitely something that I would have liked Danny to have gotten.
Yeah, I feel like even if it's not her, I feel like the whole thing feels kind of like a MacGuffin.
Sure.
Where it's like, this is she's the only one who knows. We need to go find out. And then it's like, it was within us all along.
Right.
The real power was the friends we made along the way. Like, okay,
exactly.
Great. Whatever. Like, I get it. Like, it's a story about teenage superhero team. Like, teamwork is the ultimate power. Like, it's like Kingdom Hearts, right? My friends are my power. Like, okay, cool, fine. It's dumb, but it's serviceable.
Mm-hmm. And but at the very least, Danny gets to reconnect with her parents, and so that was cool. That was a good moment.
Yeah. It is a shame that she doesn't have a little more agency in the story, and I think it's kind of cool that like they in like 2008, the second book in the trilogy is the X-Force stuff by Morin Chung, and like she's a bit more of an actor in that one. She's like the central force behind solving it, which is cool, but that's not as good of a story as this one, so it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and also that's not how quantum powers work. So the entire time that I was reading it, I'm like, I'm mad at this.
It's like this isn't how fake science works.
Even this fake science isn't how fake science works.
That man, like that whole time period was very, very messy for the X-Men, And honestly, I wish Sean was here to speak on it because I'm sure he would defend it. But like, there was like that whole period where it's like everybody's getting secondary mutations or like their powers are getting changed and all reality altering, and it's like there's a lot of stuff like that in that period where it's like very like messy, and then they hit the reset button and everyone's depowered, and then they get repowered, and some people became other things instead of mutants, but then they're mutants again. Because like what's her Danny becomes a Valkyrie.
Oh yeah,
she like goes off to Asgard and becomes a Valkyrie at some point.
Oh yeah, because that's how she gets that Pegasus thing.
Yeah.
Right. Because she's like, once on a trip to whatever.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's super weird. Just like how they made Jubilee a vampire. It was a weird time. It was a
weird
time. Yeah, that's the thing. You didn't know that? They made Jubilee a vampire.
What the fuck?
I think she got depowered and then became a vampire.
Jubilee, no, everyone, you're a fan favorite. Here, vampire powers. Oh, you don't like that? Oh no.
You're a mutant again, I guess. Although we haven't seen her in House of X, have we?
I thought we did.
She might have been in the background at one point.
Maybe.
Yeah. She hasn't been like an actor though. She hasn't done much. Good.
No, yeah, that was it.
That's it?
Yeah, that was all I had.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So I guess final thoughts?
I really, really enjoyed this. Final thoughts. I would I give this? I would give this like a solid 8.5, I think.
I'm with you there.
Yeah. And I would absolutely recommend this as an X-Men story, somebody who's trying to get into like what are the X-Men or the New Mutants?
The good shit.
What is the X family?
Yeah.
So yeah, strong showing.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the good shit, boys and girls. I think I'd side with you somewhere in the eights.
Mm-hmm.
Low to mid eights, and it's It's classic. It's a period piece in a lot of ways. And not really. That doesn't mean what I just said. It's a time capsule is what I'm trying to say, right? Like, it's very much of its time. And
but it stands.
If you can't get past that, then you're going to look at this differently than we are, right? But, like, if you can appreciate the older style of comics, of, art, of story delivery, like, if you can accept some of that stuff and like go in with an open mind and like really try to appreciate it for what it is and what it does, I think there's a lot to appreciate there. And I think this is one of the classic comics that I would recommend to modern readers who are interested in getting a sense of that history, a taste of that history, This is certainly a good book to take a look at,
Yeah.
And it's a lot different than a lot of the other Claremont stuff of this era. Like in terms of it being like horror.
Oh yeah.
Like it's similar stylistically, but like
the themes.
This isn't the kind of thing that he would have done in X-Men.
Yes,
and that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, good work, everybody. Thank you guys for joining us here in another edition of the Comics Pals Book Club. If this is your first time joining us on a piece of Comics Pals content, I hope you'll come check out our regular weekly show, The Comics Pals, where every week we talk about the world of comic book news and culture. And currently, we are doing a ton of X-Men content. So if you are an X fan and that's how you got interested in this edition of the book club, go check out our weekly show because we're regularly reviewing what's going on in House of X right now. We did Magneto Testament on last month's book club. Tons of X-Men content under our belt if you are looking for more.
Yeah, and definitely stay tuned because we're probably going to be doing a review of the actual movie, The New Mutants, in the week and a half following the release of this.
There you go.
So definitely stay tuned for that.
There you go. Again, give us a like on your platform of choice, subscribe to the RSS, go find us on YouTube. If you're over on YouTube, subscribe, click the notification bell, like the video. You guys know how to do the internet stuff. If you want to get in touch with us or join our community, you can head over to our Discord channel where we're regularly having conversations about comics and pretty much everything else that's nerdy going on in the world. So if you want to come connect with us and some of the other listeners of the show, we hope you'll come join us over there. And if you want to write in with your thoughts on the book or your suggestion for our next book club, you can hit us up at thecomicspals@gmail.com or reach out to us at thecomicspals wherever your social media is sold. So until next time, we'll catch you. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next month on another edition of the Comics Pals Book Club.
Bye.